Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from us in Nigeria. You are welcome to today's very important and special webinar on the special day, International Day of Democracy 2020. Today promises to be very exciting. We have a big fish in the house. We have one of our leaders, a man all of you always love to hear speaking. We're happy. First, I'm going to do the introduction proper. We are glad that Senator Dr. Abubarkar Bukola Saraki, actually agreed to honor our invitation. Something that is unique about Dr. Bukola Saraki is his openness to young people. Every time he's always willing, to have us around and also to interact, especially with the civil society, the media. Is a man who is never shy of actually, bearing his mind. Today is a unique day, a very special day, International Day of Democracy. For us in Nigeria, this is one way we can mark this very special event so that we're able to join the rest of the international community, to celebrate the essence of democracy. This one is happening in the time of the coronavirus pandemic. However, we still have a reason, to celebrate today's uniqueness. The United Nations has today's theme as COVID-19, a spotlight on democracy. But because of our own unique, situation in Nigeria, we will be looking at the urgency of electoral reform and this, the sustenance of democracy. Join me to welcome His Excellency Senator Dr. Bukola Saraki, CON. Your Excellency, we are joined by 500 Nigerians on this platform. We'll be joined by 500 Nigerians. It's already oversubscribed. This platform can only accommodate 500. As at last 10 minutes, the platform has been oversubscribed. So we have asked our friends and people participants to also log into our Facebook live feed. So a lot of persons are thousands of Nigerians are going to definitely be watching this very interactive segment, on electoral reform, especially the urgency of it. So permit me to introduce Dr. Bukola Saraki. Dr. Bukola Saraki is and also a former president of the Senate in Nigeria, Federal Republic of Nigeria, a man who served with openness. And if records are worth comparing, like I used to say, that probably was the most open, transparent, and pro-people, Senate since 1999. So we are very glad to have you in our midst. Let us hear you briefly, sir.
Thank you very much, Arios. So great to see you, and my best wishes. And I say hello to all the participants who have all come out today at International Democracy Day to join us in this forum. Once again, it's my pleasure to be with you. It's a great delight, and it's great to be a part of this event.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Ghali will be joining us any moment from now. I think he's having a problem with his, a technical problem with his own Zoom. I think he's in Kano in Abuja. So, Your Excellency, today, let me go straight to why we are here today. It's a serious business, and I believe that probably this should be one event, in Nigeria today, simply because we are marking this, to appreciate the essence of democracy. The International Day of Democracy, which is September 15 every year, allows the opportunity to celebrate and appreciate, the essence of democracy. It's very easy for people who live in a free society to take their freedom for granted. But for us, at Center for Liberty, we don't take our freedom for granted. We believe that we must appreciate the essence of democracy. Even though many Nigerians will agree today that our democracy, directly or indirectly, is threatened, by certain developments in the country. And you are one person who has, led the Senate to have what we call a profound reform of our electoral system. And you did it about 3-4 times, even though it was denied assent, but for obvious reasons. But for the first time, Nigerians seen some very fundamental, improvements in terms of amendment to the provisions of the Electoral Act. Hopefully, we'll be able to get this done, in the 9th Senate and the 9th National Assembly. So, Your Excellency, the part of our program is that we know that you have something to share with us. And let me also introduce myself to some of our participants. My name is Ariyo Dari Atoye. I'm project lead, electoral reform advocacy under Center for Liberty. And I will be moderating with my colleague, Mariam. Mariam is one of us. Shortly, she will also be speaking to our speakers. And Mariam, you're welcome. Mariam is here with us. And I will also want to indulge our participants to please, you can always send in your questions, listen attentively, including some of our participants who are on the Facebook channel. You can also send in your question through our Facebook page and also through Center for Liberty Twitter handle. We will try as much as possible to do justice, to your questions. And before this hour, we've received several questions from Nigerians, that which we'll be reading out to Dr. Saraki on this very auspicious occasion. So basically, we will allow the former Senate President and two-time governor of Kwara State to give us a brief overview of the significance of today before we go into the question and answer session, which, of course, many Nigerians are looking forward to. Your Excellency, sir.
Thank you very much, Ariyo. Once again, it is a pleasure for me to join this great forum focused on how to strengthen democracy and reform the electoral process in our dear country. I believe the issue being examined here today is very apt, not only because it suits the tenor of the United Nations endorsed International Day for Democracy, but also because it holds a key to some of the present problems confronting our nation. The topic of today is so relevant in light of the recent events from the United States, where for the first time in a century, the affairs of electoral fraud in their November elections, to Belarus, where recent presidential election fraught with malpractices is being violently resisted despite the crackdown by President Alexander Lukashenko security forces, to Mali, where electoral fraud has led to military takeover, and then Guinea and Cote d'Ivoire, where there is a looming crisis due to perversion of the constitutional process. It is obvious, therefore, that there is serious worldwide threat against democracy. I want to commend the organizers of this forum for taking the initiative and arranging this event. In my view, nothing threatens our democracy more than faulty electoral process. We cannot afford to allow our populace lose faith in the democratic process. That would be a recipe for chaos. So the decision of your organization to put together this forum is a very patriotic one. One would have expected this initiative to have been spearheaded by political parties, politicians, elected and appointed officials, who should recognize that the issue of having a credible electoral reform is very important. But what we have seen instead is that some of us politicians are not being sincere, or we're not demonstrating the proper understanding of what is at stake. I can see people already talking about their aspiration for 2023, forming groups here and there in preparation for their campaigns. Such politicians should know that without a credible electoral process, the next elections are already compromised and endangered. I sincerely hope that if we get it right, and when the history is written about the success of 2023 election, reference will be made to today's efforts made by organizers of this forum. History should record you as having started the movement that led to the necessary reforms that will take place. It is particularly good that the bulk of our audience here today are youth. This is because in all the fight against the threat to democracy across the world, it is the youth that take the lead. So it is very encouraging that Nigerian youth are playing that role too, as exemplified by today's program. This should be the case because social economic development presents a bright future for the youth in our country, where there are job opportunities as well as security of lives and properties. All this can only be achieved when we have stability in our democracy. One of the settled issues in Nigeria and Africa as a whole is that Africans have chosen democracy as the best form of governance. And this is a resolve that must be defended by all citizens, governments, and their leaders. I believe this resolve in favor of democracy by Nigerians is evident in the fact that we have sustained it as a system of government in the last 21 years. And within this period, we have achieved not only successful transition between different governments, but also from one political party to another. However, instead of our democracy to be maturing and for the process to be getting better, certain ugly developments have shown that we now begin to have elections that are devoid of the tenets of representative democracy. For example, we should all ask ourselves this question: why is it that after 21 years of sustained democracy, our electoral process is witnessing more violence and litigations? Why is it that more final decisions as to who is elected or not being taken are being taken by the courts? How come that the court verdicts on election petitions are now becoming a perversion of the decision made by the electorate when they cast their votes at the polling stations? Why is it that the spate of electoral petitions and judicial verdicts seem to be making a mess of the age-long judicial principle of stare decisis on what is generally known as precedent? Yet, there are still more questions. Why do participants in elections have the belief that the security agents play more determining roles in the outcome of elections? In recent times, why are there fears by most participants that the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) may not be fair in the elections? These are questions I believe should help us to interrogate the topic of today. It is a serious problem when people are unable to freely elect those who govern them. The rigging of electoral process is an indirect invitation to chaos. Our electoral process must be transparent, free, fair, and credible if we must claim to be practicing democracy. We must ensure that the ballot box remains the outlet for ventilating legitimate grievances and changing government. The next general election in this country is even more important because it signifies the end of a tenure. The election will be supervised by a president who is not eligible to recontest. The last time we're in this same situation was in 2007, and we all saw what happened. These elections are judged largely unfair. So if we do nothing, from what we saw in the election of 2019, the elections in Kogi and Bayelsa recently, and the telltale signs we are seeing as preparation to Edo elections, 2023 election could be worse. It must be noted that the rigging of the electoral process is not just about manipulation of figures during elections. It spans the issue of registration of voters, process of involving candidates, internal operations and administration of political parties, preparation by electoral commission, equal treatment meted out to all political parties by electoral bodies, genuine independence by electoral commission, neutrality of the security agencies, and patriotic consciousness of the electorate to always act with good conscience. The growth of democracy also requires having truly strong and impartial democratic institutions that can act above the dictates of the party and people in power and honestly exercise their powers as provided by law. Let me now take the issue to the day-to-day occurrence in the political process. Our aim at this forum should be to formulate an agenda or sets of recommendations which will help to make our democracy stronger, develop its institution, and make our elections free, fair, peaceful, and credible. As a way forward, we must see that many more fora of this nature should be organized and used as a platform to mobilize all stakeholders, politicians, civil society groups, non-governmental organization, youth group, women association, professional groups, and development partners on the need to realize the importance and desirability of electoral reform. The amendment to the Electoral Act should be made an urgent task. The work done by the last National Assembly is very comprehensive, and I remember the President's comments while rejecting the last version presented to him was that it was close to the commencement of the last elections, and he did not want a confusion to be created as to whether the elections were being guided by the 2010 Act or the 2019 law. The 9th National Assembly should quickly work on the Electoral Act now that the general election is almost 30 months away. Completing work on the passage of the Electoral Act now will save both the legislature and the executive the distraction that partisanship can create for them. Remember that the only problem with the last amendment of the Electoral Act is that, unfortunately, it became a victim of partisan consideration. It is necessary that whilst we do our bit at home, we call on the international community to help curb actions of politicians who undermine democracy. Here, the US decision yesterday to place visa restrictions on certain Nigerian politicians for their ignoble roles in the 2019 elections is commendable. I call on the UK and European Union to follow suit. This is necessary to send the right and strong signal that those who undermine democracy in Nigeria are enemies of the rest of the democratic world. The sanctions should go beyond politicians, including electoral officers, security officials, and judicial officers who undermine our democracy by their actions during and after elections. Let me also state here that the legislature and the executive must find a statutory solution to the use of illegal interference in the electoral process by security agencies. Maybe there should be a law that prevents the deployment of the military for election assignments. We should ensure strict compliance with the law on this, or even go further to enshrine this in our constitution. Elections are civil engagements and should be left to both the police, civil defense, and security corps. This should be legislated and provided for in the Constitution or the Electoral Act. It is also important we come in strong in the enforcement of provisions of the law. We provide for punishment of politicians, law enforcement agents, ordinary citizens, and electoral officers who are caught subverting the electoral process. All stakeholders must show commitment to diligent enforcement of and compliance with the law. These had been addressed in 2010 Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2019 that was worked upon by the 8th National Assembly. It is also important to stress that democracy can only grow if those of us who are politicians get ready to play by the rules at all times. No matter how perfect the bill and the law can be, we have a responsibility as the actors. Politicians must stop the mentality of electoral victory at all costs. The stability of the nation's democracy and peace of the nation are definitely higher goals than the personal aspiration of individual politicians. Politicians must learn to always act in a manner that gives confidence to the people that truly elections still provide the best process for sourcing leaders and kicking out those that are not wanted by the people. I want to also quickly point out that I'm eminently qualified to pontificate on this, as I can use myself as an example. I went into elections in 2019 in Kwara State under my party, the People's Democratic Party. My party and myself lost the elections. We had our reservations on the credibility of the entire electoral process. We had good evidence of illegal deployment of state forces and other undemocratic means to achieve the result declared by electoral body. The whole country witnessed the level of desperation displayed by those who could not tolerate our guts to turn the election results against us. The utterances of the former chairman of the APC, who continuously boasted about how his #1 priority and objective was to win Kwara State. But after the results of the 2019 elections were announced, I sent out messages to my followers that despite their anger and quest to express their grievances, that they should accept the result and maintain peace. I congratulated the winners and urged our people to support the newly elected officials. To further demonstrate good faith and gracefulness in defeat, I refuse to challenge the process at the tribunal. With this experience, I believe one is in a good position to talk about the need for political actors to sometimes suppress the desire for power and take side with the survival of the system. No system is perfect. So when I urge that politicians should learn to accept election results and demonstrate patriotism, even in the face of naked provocation, it is based on my experience, my own experience. The lives of our people, the stability of our democracy, and the peace of the society are more important than our personal interests or our inflated egos of we the leaders. Let me at this point also mention that next Saturday, 4 days away, the Edo gubernatorial election will be taking place. And also October 10, another gubernatorial election will hold in Ondo State. This should be a starting point for our demand for a credible electoral process. Whilst we wait for the new electoral bill to be passed, we can begin to demand that the right things are done by all stakeholders in this election. Led by our President Muhammadu Buhari, we can ensure that these two elections signpost his desire, or our collective desire, and his desire particularly to leave for Nigeria and Africa a legacy. President Buhari can use the Edo and Ondo election to demonstrate ECOWAS' commitment to a credible electoral process. The president must put his feet down and ensure that the security agents will and must not be misused to influence the results of the election in Edo and Ondo State. Also, electoral commission should be made to be truly immune from manipulations by individuals, no matter how highly placed. Already, the international community are giving a verdict on some of the recent elections by sanctions announced by the United States. We as a country cannot continue to pretend all is well. We must demonstrate seriousness. And when I say demonstrate seriousness, not just government, all stakeholders. And that is why, again, I comment today's program. Because sometimes we leave all this to just government. All of us as stakeholders have a role to play. We must demonstrate seriousness and take a cue from this strong message that the international community have passed down, that these coming elections, we must make corrections. Also, the president can also send a message to the National Assembly when the members resume later in the month that he wants them to present him a new electoral bill for assent before the end of the year. This is easily achievable and will send a strong message to the international community that the government is taking this matter with the seriousness it deserves. The present COVID-19 era has presented us with more challenges, and we should refrain from aggravating the situation by undermining democracy or weakening the electoral process. Our people are more prone to reacting negatively to developments that deny them of their rights to freely choose their leaders. Nigeria cannot afford any political crisis now that has serious economic and security challenges. Let us not push the people to the tipping point. We need to learn from developments across the borders. Internal vigilance, they say, is the price of liberty. I must add that this is also the price to be paid for an enduring, vibrant, and viral democracy. So let the journey of the electoral reform start today. Let us mobilize political parties, our representatives in the National Assembly, state assemblies, other NGOs, civil society groups, professional groups, political parties, and others to join the train. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to air my views on this important issue. I wish all Nigerians a happy International Democracy Day. God bless Nigeria. God bless you all. Thank you all.
Your Excellency, I just have to clap. this is a bear it all statement, courageous, and indeed we're very proud of this. And I believe that many Nigerians who have joined us as participants, both on Zoom, on Facebook, would definitely must have learned a lot from what you've said, a very profound statement. And we are very glad that after a long time, I mean, some months, you are giving us this kind of a speech on this very important platform. We can't be prouder. And we have found you as an ally, even though you have led that position before in terms of giving us an enduring electoral reform. But now that some of us are in the trenches to ensure that we have an enduring electoral reform, you have also committed yourself to this, and you have profiled solutions, including very bold statements about the limitations of our systems, including the gaps inherent in our system. Your Excellency, we thank you for this very wonderful speech. We thank you for this very wonderful statement. We believe that we have just started, and a lot of questions will definitely be coming in. We're happy that we have His Excellency Alhaji Ghali Umar Naba. He has joined us. Alhaji Ghali Umar Naba was a former Speaker, House of Representatives, 1999 to 2003. Alhaji Ghali Nahaba, of course, today is seen more as an activist by many Nigerians because he is also committed to a Nigeria that works. That was why today he has made himself as a partner in the National Consultative Forum for us to also pursue electoral reform and a nation that works. Recently was invited because of his outspoken commentary on the state of the nation. And of course, a courageous and also a fearless person. And we are very proud to have His Excellency Alhaji Umar Ghali Nahaba in our midst. And he's a Nigerian, like I said, that is passionate. And he was President Conference of Speaker of West African Parliament during his time, and Vice President Global Parliamentarians on Habitat, Vice President African Region Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. So we are very proud to have you, Alhaji Ghali Umar Naba. Please want you to unmute. And probably you've listened to some of this, commentaries, profound at that, made by Dr. Bukola Saraki, former President of the Senate. We want to also hear from you on the essence of today and also probably your reaction. Alhaji Ghali Umar Naba. Are you there, sir? You can unmute. We are not hearing you. You can unmute your microphone and your video so that we can see you, Alhaji Ghali Umar Naba. Okay, while waiting for His Excellency Alhaji Ghali Umar Naba, and definitely Nigerians are not going to allow Dr. Bukola Saraki, to only just speak. They are ready. They have also sent a lot of questions for them to, for His Excellency to react to. If Alhaji Ghali Umar Naba is there, please, we also want you to speak now, so that you're trying to unmute your button. Anyway, Alhaji Nahaba will definitely join us since he's already here. Your Excellency, we've received, like I said, tens of questions because of them, from Peter Ijoma, from Olayinka Ibrahim, from Abdulaziz Bimbas, Ibrahim Jubril, Sadiq Lawan, across, many Nigerians, young Nigerians have sent in their questions and they really want to, get your response. But before we go into that, Your Excellency, something happened that led to one of the reasons why we couldn't have the Electoral Act Amendment Bill passed, at the initial stage was the issue of which election should come first between the presidential election, the National Assembly election, or the governorship election. That actually generated, a sort of controversy. Now, for us as Center of Liberty, we are proposing something. I want to hear your reaction to this. What are we proposing? We are now proposing the institutionalization of a special day for election in Nigeria. Your Excellency, you know that every 4 years, first Tuesday of November, every 4 years, is known as Election Day in the United States of America. In essence, for us as Center for Liberty, we're also proposing that we should have all our elections in one day. That if we can have 3 elections, presidential, Senate, and House of Rep in one day, we can also have governorship and House of Assembly. This is our proposal to the review committee. So we want to know, sir, your take on this, because we want Nigerians to also have, an institutionalized day, such that maybe every first Saturday of February in 4 years, or second Saturday of February, then we're able to have, our election. So we want to hear your view if this position that we have taken, which we believe that is cost effective in terms of logistics, in terms of money spent by politicians, we want to hear from you. But before that, His Excellency, Alhaji Ghali Namba. Alhaji Ghali Namba.
Hello?
Yes, Your Excellency.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay.
So, Your Excellency, we are happy to have you. His Excellency, Dr. Bukola Saraki, he has read his statement, very profound statements, and he said a lot of things about the need for electoral reform. And a BIE-all statement in which he also identified the gaps in our system, our democratic and electoral system. He has also commended the United States, for the latest sanction against some erring politicians. He has also proffered solutions to some of our challenges. So we want to hear from His Excellency Ghali Namba, former Speaker of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and also more or less an activist politician who's also working, for us to have a nation that works. We want to hear from you, Your Excellency Ghali Namba.
Well, let me say good afternoon to all of you, and good afternoon to my brother and friend, President, distinguished Senator Abubarkar Olishola Saraki. I'm delighted to be on this platform with all of you, particularly my friend, the former Senate President, who I haven't seen in a long time. It is a pleasure to reunite on this platform. And even though I had not listened to all of the lecture, I've been indisposed earlier. I joined late and I couldn't have heard all he had said. But let me assume that what you want done in this country is a situation whereby we have credible elections. And I know as a fact that possibly apart from the election in 1999, since we started this democracy, all the elections have not been very, very credible. And I was in the House of Representatives, and I did all I could in order to impress on the executive then that for us to have a credible democracy, which is inevitably connected with a credible election, we ought to have a full democratic infrastructure. And that infrastructure, of course, has to have an infrastructure that will provide us with an election or elections that are credible. Historically, democracy has not been determined in Nigeria. Neither has it been determined in any other underdeveloped country. It is a system which has been transposed on us, and thereby people must learn something, people must be taught something, and a structure or an infrastructure that will provide the people with the wherewithal to go and vote freely and fairly must be provided for the people. And it is a side commentary on our political system that in these 20 years, nothing like such an infrastructure is available. Normally, people go and vote either in primary schools that have no security or in football fields that also have no security, and in other places that are really not palatable for elections. And I had proposed that since then, that in every ward in this country, facilities must be provided where elections would be taking place, either whether it is within the party, that is where we desire to have internal democracy, or for the purpose of the general elections, we need to have such an infrastructure. If I will give you an example, the last primary elections that produced contestants or candidates for the APC, the APC decided that in some states there must be direct elections. But these direct elections proved very, very worrisome because there was no credibility in them, because the venues where such elections took place had no security, and there was a lot of interference from thugs. There was so much thuggery, there was so much rigging, and because there was so much insecurity, aspirants that were not favored by the party, because the party had its preference and the people had their preferences, and you find out that the party used to instigate people against anybody that is not being favored by the party. And what I want to emphasize is that because we have little time, what I want to say is that the infrastructure for elections must be provided by the government in all wards, where people will go and vote in security, where elections will take place without intimidation. There must be security, and all measures that will contribute towards having a credible election must be provided. And this is my observation about our current democracy. And another aspect where something serious must be done is in the area of internal democracy within our parties. Internal democracy simply means the extent to which party members are allowed to participate in the deliberations and activities of their political parties. Today, internal democracy is almost non-existent. It is obliterated, and this unfortunate acts have been perpetrated by our governors. And what happens is that the governors have taken away politics from the people and placed it in the government houses. And you find out situations where when there is going to be primary elections, the governors call party members to the government house and decide who will contest and who will not contest. And they have also obliterated elections during the congresses, elections to elect party leaders, party executives from the ward level to local government level to state level. These have all been hijacked by the governors. And in this process, politics has been taken away altogether from the people. And this is very, very dangerous for democracy. And the lack of internal democracy has translated in the kind of misrule that is going on in our country in the past few years. And to have a credible leadership, to have quality leadership, we must fine-tune the way and manner we recruit party leaders and political office holders. And the most credible way to do that is in a free and fair election, where people compete, where people decide who they elect on the basis of how qualitative aspirants are. In a nutshell, what I want to say is that there must be internal democracy within our parties. Right now, there is almost none. Our two major political parties have obliterated it. And for us, as a country, to live in security, to be a country where excellence is allowed to prevail, we must have this internal democracy. We cannot afford to continue to elect those who govern us on the basis of arbitrariness. And this arbitrariness, I'm sorry to say, has come to a head because even the governors who oppress people politically are now becoming victims of such an oppression. Because if you look at the last election, there were a few governors who wanted to impose their own candidates, and those who wanted others in the party prevailed over them, which means that even at the level of leadership, there is no consensus among our leaders. And once there is no consensus among and between our leaders within the political parties, then that is a very bad recipe. It is a recipe for disaster, because if such conflicts among individuals who are top party members, who are leaders in the community, continue to prevail, even the recruitment of leaders who will lead the country at various levels will be very, very difficult. And the end result will be conflict among the people, between themselves and by themselves. So this is a very, very dangerous trend. And most of you are youths. And I believe that the future belongs to you. And you should join us who are fighting this tendency, to fight this tendency, so that the cost is clear for you whenever you want to contest to become anything in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Umar Ghali, for your very, detailed response and very thought-provoking intervention in this very important program. And I believe that the former Deputy Senate Presidents have also listened to you, and I believe that there will be some of the very important things that we want to respond to. However, before we go into some of the issues raised by the former speaker, there was a particular question that I actually put to Dr. Saraki, which is about the need for us to have all our elections in one day. We thought about this at Center for Liberty, believing that in terms of cost, it's going to reduce a lot of costs, logistics, and also it's also going to guarantee free, fair election in the sense that you realize that there is something that happened in our democracy and our politics where some people will always try to outdo each other. For instance, those who have won in the first election, the second election, they're trying to outwit those people, all sort of the rank. Then even in terms of violence, it's going to be difficult for talks to come to disrupt some of the ballot papers. For instance, your party could be winning in the presidential election and be losing in the House of Assembly. Your party could be winning in the governorship or losing the governorship and be winning in the House of Assembly in the same polling unit. It's going to be difficult for a party to send in talks, to undermine. That's our own limited, reasons why we are actually canvassing. But we want to hear from, from the experience of Dr. Bukola Saraki on this very important. Then before we go to other questions.
Thank you very much, Ario. Let me, before I just answer your question, use the opportunity to also welcome my brother and the former speaker, Ghali. Rightly, so good to hear your voice, and it's been such a while. And also thank you for taking time to come and contribute on this very important topic. And continue to appreciate your efforts to sustaining our democracy. Yes, Ario, I think what you are proposing definitely is a right step in the right direction. Eventually, that's where we should be. Having one day, designated for elections for most of the offices, as opposed to where we have it now, where it's phased. I think after 21 years, that should be our target. It's more effective. It is cheaper. But I think it's more of the issue of logistics at the period when we started, being able to get it right, not ensuring that everything depended on one day. But I think it's all part, this issue of election day is part of a bigger process. There are many things we must take collectively at the same time. Just choosing a date to hold all those elections, yes, that is one. But beyond that, there are things we must strengthen that institution's capacity to carry out the elections. That is INEC. Capacity of the security agencies also to be able to carry out that process. Capacity to be able to resolve issues that come up on the day of election. There are infrastructure issues. There are issues of communication. I mean, look at even just trying to move electoral materials on day of election. You can see the kind of problems we have been able to run into. So ideally, yes, that's what we should have. But in doing that, we must look at whether we have already done the right preparations in order for the INEC and all those responsible for elections are in a position to be able to organize 4 elections on the same day. They should be, but if we start early, and that is why I keep on commending this exercise, if we start early now and not leave everything last minute, the world has moved so much. There are IT solutions to most things, to logistics, but most of the times, the majority of this preparation are done at the very last minute, and that is why you sometimes find raw material, election materials will come in one state, will not arrive in another state. Those are things that are inexcusable if they're proper planning. So we can, it's better for us to have one day for election. As we do that, we must also look at what are those things that those institutions will need in order to be able to do that. So I support it, but I think it cannot be taken in isolation. You must take that along with how do you strengthen those institutions to be able to carry that out.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We appreciate your response. Quickly to Alhaji Nahaba, he talked about the concern in terms of party politics, internal democracy. As one of our recommendations in our memorandum to the Senate, we are also canvassing for the elimination of statutory delegates. For instance, we believe that everybody should submit themselves for election to be ad hoc delegates, simply because if a governor has statutory delegates, you already have a good number in terms of when you're going for party primaries. Alhaji Ghali, what will you be talking about that elimination of statutory delegates and only ad hoc delegate? And this ad hoc delegate should actually emerge at least 6 months or 1 year, to the primaries.
I believe that ideally statutory delegates must be out. But normally the argument is made. You know, the whole issue around political parties is that those who, in the first place, initiate the political party or establish it or form it, you know, they form these political parties with a view to having control over the party, because they believe like it is their own party. And people generally are only mobilized to support that theme, even though they are not aware of it. So unless the people of themselves by themselves will establish their own political parties which they own, it is going to be very, very difficult to ask any political party to abandon this idea of statutory delegates. And that is one trick about this democracy. At almost every turn, you have to confront this law or theory of oligarchy. At the end, you know, ultimately, a few people sit down and discuss and decide what happens in whatever political party. But then, by their very calling, political parties are not private enterprises. And those who own the political parties, I believe, must strike a balance between the ownership of those parties and also how democratic the parties are. Because overall, you are also dealing with a system that must be palatable to the participation of the people. Any democracy in which people are not allowed to participate is not a democracy. And these are some of the problems about running a democracy. You know, you are dealing with a democracy that is practiced within a social system. And these social systems are organic systems. When you violate them, they also hit back. We should not assume that because they are not human beings, the systems, even though are not human beings, but are run by humans. And whatever wrong one commits against these organizations, they have a way of hitting back. And the fact that we are witnessing what is happening today in Nigeria in terms of misgovernance, bad leadership, and so on and so forth, these are all responses to the way and manner we are treating our democracy. So those who own political parties must be aware of this, so that whatever they do must not lead to conflict within the system. And I believe that that is the only way to manage our democracy. We have to accept that the position of leadership we have in any democracy, we have to accept that it is by the grace of the people. And then that same grace must inform us to be gracious to the people by allowing them to participate. Maybe mathematically we can say, okay, let those who own the parties own it. Maybe 10% or 20%, 80% must go to the people. That way, something is being shared with the people. But there is no way you can have it all, which is what is happening today. You know, politicians want to have it all to the detriment of the people. That is why there is no peace within the political parties. You always have conflict because others are not allowed to participate.
Thank you, sir.
Ario, can you let me know if I can just contribute on this topic?
Very well. Very well, sir.
Yeah, because I have a slightly different view on how we should approach. Because when you talk about internal democracy, you talk about issue of delegates, someone with a medical background. I see that we're talking about symptoms. They're all symptoms. They're not. We should go to the disease. Why do we see this kind of behavior where leaders will be so arrogant in their approach, no respect for the wish of the people? Why will people that own parties behave like this? The fundamental issue is that it's because our votes do not count. You see, when you have a system where the votes count, if I have a political party, I want to win. If I know that my rascality or my undemocratic process will not make me win election, I will do the right thing. But for as long as I believe that all it takes is for me to grab the party, put my unpopular candidate, go to election, manipulate the process, go to the judiciary, announce my candidate, nothing is going to change. But the moment we have a system that you know, I know, all stakeholders know that the wish of the people, well, can't be 100%, 90% is what's going to happen at the end of the day. Parties themselves will change the way they behave. So I want us to not get, distracted in picking up. Those issues are important, but let us go to the core of what is important. How do we ensure that votes count? And that's the point also my brother was talking about, where he said that we should not take the system for granted. Because when people believe that their vote no longer counts, then we will begin to have danger in the whole democracy. So my own approach more is that instead of addressing those issues, we should go to what does it ensure for a voter's wish or aspiration or desire would count, and addressing and making it more difficult for people to subvert that process.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. This question is also to you. Senator Saraki helped to pass Not Too Young to Run bill, but that bill without not too old to run bill is counterproductive. But this is actually the question. Will there be moves to ensure Nigeria in diaspora begin to vote? I know that this was also discussed during the last legislative session. Your Excellency, do you think it's something that we should also take as part of our current campaign for people in the diaspora to also participate in voting?
I think we should. Again, where the world is today. I mean, most of the concerns before was whether we had the infrastructure to support for INEC to be able to make that happen. But as I said earlier on as well, there's so many solutions now to these kind of administrative issues, and I believe that it is surmountable. We should not deprive people in diaspora to participate. Whatever the concerns are, I believe that if we strengthen the commission, we should be able to ensure that those elections are transparent. There will be fears, of course, that there will be manipulation, that there'll be abuses. But I think, again, what is important is for us to be able to find out what is the best solution. So we should not deprive people of exercising their fundamental right or their civil rights, but because we don't have the structure or the infrastructure to support it. And so that should be the other way around. We must ensure that all Nigerians participate, whether they're in or out of the country. And then our responsibility is to see that we put INEC in a position by which it can make that happen.
Thank you, Excellency. That question was asked by Akim Amo. Now, there are also these two questions which I will ask you and also allow Alhaji Naba to respond. And to Dr. Saraki, he said, how can we eradicate the system of godfatherism? That's by Olayinka M. Ibrahim. Excess spending, buying of votes, and also Abdul Aziz Bimbas is also complementing that question by saying that how do we eradicate the effect of religion and ethnicity in Nigerian's democracy? Because he sees it as something that is really, really impacting negatively on our democracy. Your Excellency, Dr. Saraki.
Thank you. That was a very good question. I think the issue of godfatherism comes back to the issue of, again, where if we have a process that ensures that the wish of the people will carry the day. So all parties should be struggling to ensure that they bring the best candidate forward, right? So in that scenario, whether you're in a political party, your best bet is for whoever is elected to go and perform, knowing that he or she does not perform, he or she will be kicked out by the next election. So at that point, the elected officials' loyalty or commitment is to ensure that he delivers, not loyalty to an individual. But today, the system, the belief by most participants is that sometimes you don't even need to be popular. If so-called godfather or those powers that be are behind you, they can make you become a governor or make you win an election even if the people don't want you. That is what has to change. Once that changes, I believe that issue of godfathers and all that will change, because people will now know that who they need are the people, not individuals. Talking about vote buying, that is something that it's also linked to my view to the state of the country, to the level of poverty, level of education. That is a process also that it will take a while to completely eliminate that. And I think that is part of a country that has developed and there's a better environment for our people. And in that case, people will understand that selling your vote on that day, it's negative towards development. So and that also comes to the issue of religion and ethnicity. Those are things that, again, is education and awareness, where people begin to say that irrespective of where you come from or your religion, that's not what's important. Is can you deliver? Can you deliver for your development? At the moment, lack of awareness, education, poverty makes electorate to think that, look, that's not important to me. So I think that will happen, but that will happen over time. And when people begin to see that, they can't continue to live in an environment of bad governance. They must look for the best hand. They must leave ethnicity and religious issues, but look at who best can deliver. And I think that we're getting there, because people are beginning to see the effect of bad governance in their communities, in their local government, states, and federal. And with that is happening now, people will begin to say, look, when we are picking a candidate, we must look at who would definitely make my life better.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me quickly say this. I know that our idea was to just do within 1 hour, but now it's getting so interesting. But let me quickly crave the indulgence of Dr. Saraki. How many minutes can we have more for Nigerians? Because ordinarily we are scheduled this for 1 hour. Can we have you for the next 10 minutes or 20 minutes more, sir?
Let's do about 15 minutes and another 15 minutes.
Thank you very much.
All right.
We're about rounding up conversation. To Alhaji, how to address this concern about ethnicity, religion. Do you think we can also use this electoral reform amendment to cure the issue of ethnicity agitation, such that in future Nigerians will no longer think about where a leader is coming from, but the quality of that leader? Alhaji Naba.
Well, indicated earlier, you see, this democracy is industrial democracy. because those countries that started it and maintained it had to achieve industrial status for them to be able to come up with democracy. There were teething problems in it started before it stood on its own, and we have never been industrial. They were wealthy when they became a democracy, and that was why they found it, even though they had teething problems. It took a long time before it even stabilized. So, of course, we should expect some hurdles. But what I want to say here is that, like my brother, the Senate President, indicated, there must be some education. Political education is very necessary for us to be able to achieve substantially what democracy can give us, or what it is expected to give us. What democracy is expected to do to us is to transform our lives, to make us more clear, to make us more responsible, to make us better leaders, to make us better in everything. And one of the important things that must be observed are governments must do their best to get us out, because it is poverty that instigates people to begin to ask where their leader comes from. You know, cleavages are created in an atmosphere of poverty. And that is why the linkage between education and politics and poverty must be acknowledged, and something serious must be done by government in order to be able to substantially eliminate these prejudices. And education is paramount. We have this National Orientation Agency, and this agency must be supported to educate the people on what is democracy, where is it supposed to take us. So many things, even inter-institutional relationships. For example, a lot of people who are today holding political positions don't even know what the relationship between the executive and the legislature and the judiciary is supposed to be. And then a lot of people believe that this democracy is about enabling people to get, and that is why you have all these godfathers around. When I was contesting to come to the House of Representatives, some of my colleagues who contested to become local government chairman, because the local government election took place earlier than the election to the National Assembly in 1999. A lot of people who came to the House of Representatives wanted to contest to become chairman of their local governments. And then the godfathers, because the chairmanship is very lucrative because of the allocation being given to the local governments, the godfathers now imposed their preferred candidates to be local governments, to contest for the local government chairmanship. And those who contested with them, some of whom eventually ended up in the House of Representatives, were asked to come to Abuja. They will say, you please be patient, allow this person to contest, and you go to Abuja. Because Abuja, there is no money back home. That was what it meant. So we educate people politically to know why we have a democracy. And in time, this knowledge will be inhibiting tendency to begin to look or to continue to look at politics ethnically or religiously. All our religions enjoin us to be good leaders. But then when you have people at the level of politics who are instigating people to be voting either on religious lines or on ethnic lines, I think we have to look at these things and make amends.
Thank you very much, sir. I think I've looked at most of the questions. These are questions that actually have been addressed in the speech made by Dr. Bukola Saraki and also in the commentary of former Speaker Ghali Nahaba. And let me just I would like you to, just round up to give your thoughts, your final thoughts on this special event, the International Day of Democracy. But let me just, we won't end this without actually acknowledging some of the comments from Nigerians, thanking the speakers. Thank you, distinguished Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, for all the information, so a lot of them have made comments. There are some of them who say that, look, we want to know what probably is going to be part of your final thought, that how are you going to, again, help us to support this process so that we are able to have this bill passed quickly, because Nigerians believe that if this bill is not passed this year, by 2021, partisan politics again will start entering. Kudos to Louis for laying it threadbare. Your courage to stand with the truth in the face of unprovoked intimidation, is actually commendable. We await your return. A lot of people, and let me also say it here, without even this commentary, and for us at the civil society today, this is a period we are most agitated, and Nigerians must listen to this. People did not see what Dr. Bukola Saraki actually did for us, then trying to stop a lot of draconian bills. That 8th Senate actually supported Nigerians. Some of the bills today that we are crying about as civil society were the bills that were defeated in the 8th National Assembly. And to this, we want to thank Dr. Bukola Saraki, because now Nigerians have seen the truth. Hopefully, the current 9th National Assembly, we want to toe the part of the 8th National Assembly by not, passing some of these draconian bills that Nigerians have defeated. For instance, look at the social media bill, the 8th speech bill. These are the bills that the 8th session of the National Assembly is not allowed to sail through. And indeed, Nigerians are worried what is happening currently. And people are saying, we missed Dr. Bukola Saraki. But Dr. Saraki is still very much around and is still offering his leadership, and we are very grateful. And a lot of Nigerians have commended you. We have also received a lot of messages also commending Speaker Ghali Nahaba. People said they appreciate the fact that you continue to speak your mind. And I was also with Alhaji Nahaba in Kaduna State when the Kaduna State University invited him to speak. And I came with Dr. Sam Amadi then. I think we took some pictures, and I want to commend your courage, boldness, in speaking. And Nigerians are saying Alhaji Nahaba should not be intimidated, even if the DSS is inviting you, and anybody is inviting you, that they appreciate you. So we want to thank our panelists, our speakers, eminent Nigerians, senior citizens who have actually given us this time to respond to critical issue, which is actually agitating the minds of Nigeria, which is electoral reform. It's the most pressing need of our democratic experiments, based on the yearnings of Nigerians. The bill in the National Assembly on electoral reform is the most sought after legislation by all Nigerians. So, as we end this, I would like to give the speakers maybe like two minutes or thereabout for them to just round up and express, summarize, their view of democracy today in Nigeria, internationally. Dr. Saraki actually went memory lane talking about issues in different climes in Belarus, United States of America, and also recent developments in Mali. He has said all of this, but we want to hear, your final thoughts, on this very importantly. Dr. Saraki.
Thank you very much. I think, as I said, my own comments today is really to commend you, commend all the participants, because you have seen the importance of us getting the electoral process right. And this is the first thing we all need to do. All stakeholders, all patriotic Nigerians, what we need now to do, executive, legislative, or government, and representative, is let's quickly go and amend the electoral law. I think that is key. Now, the document might not even be perfect at this stage, but definitely it is better than what we have now. Because in trying to also get perfection, we could be bogged down for another 1 year. And as you rightly say, we have seen from experience, once we get into 2021, late 2021, it becomes a difficult task. I see the window between now and end of the year. Let us pass something that is workable. We can make amendments as we go into next year, but let us even improve on what we have. Secondly, right, it's those of you at these kind of panel, Center for Advancement, Civil Liberties, and similar organizations to mobilize and really get the message that all stakeholders, political parties will also take a position, our members, National Assembly, and this is what I believe is of primary importance to all of us, because as I say, without credible elections, there can't be credible government. Without credible government, there cannot be growth and job creation, economic empowerment, security, and without that, what country do you have? So this looks like, sometimes people think it's a narrow-minded issue. No, it has ramifications across the entire social, economic thing, whatever. It takes a lot of character to be able to do it. I mean, we must stand firm. I've experienced in what we went through when we tried to pass the 2019 amendment, but I think we have an opportunity now, very early on, to do that. And all of you, I believe, should put pressure on all politicians that we should all, whatever party, we all come together and get this done before end of the year. I think then we'll be really laying the foundation for a stable democracy and possibility of free and fair election in 2023. Once again, pleasure of the time now spent with everybody. Thanks so much.
Before you go, sir, wait 1 minute. Let's hear from Alhaji Ghali Abba. But let me say this, that this program is also jointly organized, supported by Open Society Initiative for West Africa, who has been an organization supporting Center for Liberty. So from Osiwa to, who are, our supporter and also partners in having this, I want to thank Dr. Bukola Saraki, now to His Excellency Alhaji Ghali Umar Naba. A lot of thoughts have been expressed. We also want to hear your final comment on today's, this very important day on democracy. Is there hope for Nigeria? Is there a future for Nigeria? In 1 or 2 minutes, let us hear you. Thank you.
Well, like my brother did, commend all of you for organizing this talk shop. It's very, very important that from time to time, people gather together to hear themselves and discuss their country. And this is what we are doing. I believe that Nigeria has a future. And that future can only be realized if democracy is allowed to subsist, if democracy is allowed the space. There is no way a future can be guaranteed in an atmosphere where internal democracy is obliterated and where political exclusion is the guiding principle of governance. These are very, very serious characteristics of our democracy, which need to be looked at with the eyes of wisdom, so that anybody who is practicing those two vices should change. And these variables are variables that are at the vortex of our democracy, and running around them and doing something else, for example, lack of political inclusion and lack of internal democracy, eventually lead us to a situation whereby things in this country become security problems. If you look at most of the conflicts in our country, you'll find out that you can substantially trace many of them to the lack of internal democracy and political inclusion. So there must be political inclusion and there must be internal democracy. That is the only way we can guarantee a future. I said earlier that arbitrariness is becoming increasingly the method with which and within which leadership is recruited in this country by our political parties. And this arbitrariness is coming to a head. And what happened last elections within both our political parties, is an eye-opener. And this tendency is going to continue to escalate. And there is no way this tendency will escalate without us having a civil war. I'm not a prophet of doom, but if you look at history, it is these small things that convolute to bring out a larger conflagration. Because as it is today, we are witnessing the fact that politics has become industry. It becomes a matter of life and death, who wins and who loses. And these are all brought about by lack of internal democracy and by lack of political inclusion. And when you take away confidence from the president that his rights will be given to him or will be allowed him, and that being the case, people must naturally resort to self-help. And if two parties decide to pursue their entitlements only through the process of self-help, then you see there is something wrong in that system. So we must change our ways, our politics, allow real democracy. I have spoken at length about internal democracy. Because of lack of time, it is impossible for me to enumerate all the bad character of internal democracy, lack of it.
Very well.
But I have stated some, and I believe that the sooner political parties come to terms with the issue of internal democracy, the better for politics. Very much, and read the former Senate President, my friend, Dr. Saraki.
Thank you.
And, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I don't know. Dr. Saraki wants to say something?
I just want to also thank my brother, the speaker, for his contributions. Of course, always on point, as always, and continue to commend him for his courageous position, always standing for what he truly believes in. And let's all continue to play our own role in order to, sustain the democracy that we have in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will allow my colleague, Mariam Ahmed, to just say thank you for speakers and also members of the press who have also joined us to listen, because I believe that what has been said today, definitely we're going to see them in the dailies either today or tomorrow, and we also really appreciate the speaker. Mariam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I would just like to say that Center for Liberty would like to thank you, Your Excellency, Senator Dr. Bukola Saraki, and Your Excellency Alhaji Ghali for a very interactive and insightful discussion. It's really no doubt that there's an urgency for electoral reform and sustenance of democracy in our country, Nigeria. We hope that by having this webinar, we are moving closer and closer to reaching our goal of electoral reform. Thank you as well to Osiwa, the funder of this project, and the media and the participants who joined this webinar, share their perspectives and ask questions. It's equally important that we get the views of the public as well. Thank you once again, and have a great rest of the day.
So thank you very much. Our speakers, Dr. Saraki, Alhaji Naaba, we're really grateful for this honor. We can't thank you enough. We're excited. You've made our day today, International Day of Democracy. And of course, our leaders have spoken. Also, the people have also shared their feelings. And we believe that together we can have a sensible democracy. I believe that if we have the Electoral Act 2020, definitely we can start another journey for a free, fair, credible election. So we are grateful to Dr. Saraki and Alhaji Ghali Naaba. Thank you for everything. We are grateful, sir. Honestly, we can't thank you enough. Short notice, and indeed, you made our day. Nigerians are truly grateful, and we sincerely appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you.
Sir.
Bye.